Hi everyone, this is Donna. Welcome to my stop on the Whimsy Stamps and Pear Blossom Lighted Up video hop. I hope you'll join us in hopping along across all of the participants and leaving a comment for a chance to win one of two prizes from Whimsy Stamps and Pear Blossom Press. For my card today, I'm creating a Halloween inspired card using that little jack-o'-lantern from the Got Peepers stamp set. I'm going to start working on the background, and I have this piece of distressed watercolor cardstock, and here I'm just securing it to my cutting board with some painter's tape so that when I watercolor, I minimize some of the warping by having it pressed in place. I've got my Gansai Tambi watercolors, and I'm just going to be using one color to create the background, and it's that really bright and bold purple. I'm starting off with a dry watercolor cardstock, and then I'm just adding in some water to my brush and picking up the watercolor to add it to my background. I'm then doing this swiping motion back and forth. I'm just trying to minimize any lines and make it as smooth as possible. So once I have that first layer down, I'll go ahead and use my heat gun and just kind of dry it. I'm not drying it all the way, it's still slightly damp, but this way it gives me a drier area to add my second layer. So again, I'm just adding a little bit of water to my brush and then picking up the watercolor and coming in and swiping it back and forth. I'll dry the panel a second time so that I can add the third layer of color, and this time I'm barely adding in any of the water to my brush when I pick up the color. And again, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm going swiping back and forth just to add the color. And I try to remove any of the harsher lines that are left behind. There are still some, but it's okay. We're just going to cover that up afterwards. Now, I did remove the painter's tape while my panel was dry, and on this last time, I did not dry my panel with a heat gun. I just let it air dry. While the background panel is air drying, I will stamp out my image. I have a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock inside my MISTI, and I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink to stamp that out. I'll go ahead and stamp it out twice just to get a really nice dark outline, and then I can grab my Copic markers and color in the image. Now I have left the coloring in, but I have sped it up quite a bit, and I'm just using a few shades to color in this jack-o'-lantern. I will have a list of everything I've used over on my blog, which I will link to down below. Also down below is all of the information for the hop and the prizes, but each company is offering a $25 gift certificate to their shop. You must leave a comment by November 1st in order to qualify, and the winner will be announced by November 4th on the Whimsy Stamps YouTube channel. Again, I will have all of that listed down below, as well as the next participant in this hop. So back to the coloring, I started by laying down my lightest shade, which is Y38, and then I added in my shadows with YR18, just a little bit around the mouth and kind of at the top and bottom, kind of as you would see ribs on a pumpkin, just to define some of those lines. And then I've blended it out with YR07, YR04, and then I'll do another layer of Y38 just to blend everything out. Here at the top of the bucket, I'm just doing a little bit of outlining with YR18. And then I basically do the same blend again. I do YR07, I blend that out with YR04, and then I do one swipe over the entire part of that image with the Y38. The candies are such tiny images that honestly I kept it at 1 or 2 marker blends. For this green one, I started with a G09 and then a G02, and I felt like some of the shadow was lost, so I came in with a G19. For the pink candies, I'm here trying to decide which ones I want to color. I did RV09, RV13, and then I came back in with RV09 and blended that again. The blue candies are all kind of tucked behind and peeking around some of the larger images. And for those, I've used B18 and B16, I believe. And then for this purple one, I grabbed one of the fluorescent ones, but I honestly couldn't tell the difference. So I came in with a B66, and then I came back in with actually nothing. I didn't even bother adding any other shades. And then I just used my white gel pen to add some highlights and kind of make those look shiny. So I decided I wanted the jack-o'-lantern to glow from his mouth and his eyes. And I realized that this is a bucket and the chances of buckets glowing are slim to none. But in my world, this jack-o'-lantern bucket does have his glowing eyes and mouth. So I'm just using my X-Acto knife and my small scissors to kind of cut out the mouth and the eyes. And then I used my scan and cut to cut the rest of the image out. So at this point my background is dry, and I always like to run my watercolor panels either through my die cutting machine, or actually most of the time I run it through my laminating machine and have the heat kind of flatten the panel out. So I wanted to create some spooky clouds, so I've die cut a piece of acetate with one of the cloud dies from the Grass and Cloud Edger die set, and then I'm just using some white pigment ink and a finger dauber, and I'm just kind of going through and adding just ever so slightly that white pigment to create the clouds. So once I have the entire panel covered with some of the clouds, I'll take that same finger dauber and just kind of pull the ink up to create more of a wispy cloud effect. And then I'll do that across the entire panel. I'm not pressing too hard. I have a very gentle hand when I'm doing this because I don't want to just cover the entire area with the white pigment ink. And then once I finish that up, I do set that panel aside to dry one more time. And for the image, I'm adding a piece of vellum over the eye and the mouth area. I'm just lightly going to trace with my pencil around the image. And then I'm going to grab my fussy cutting scissors and trim that out. And sorry, I'm just a little bit off screen here, but basically I just cut around on the inner edge of my image. And then I'm gonna make sure that it's not able to be seen on the sides. And I've got my black Copic marker. I'm just gonna cover this area in this marker so that my light behind the image is not noticeable until I light up the card. I have the background panel that I've trimmed down to 3.5 by 4 3/4 using a stitched rectangle die. And then here's where I kind of start messing up. And I have my image. I do go ahead and adhere the vellum to the back of the image before I measure out where I need to cut holes. And so you'll see here in a moment how I attempt to fix that. So here is the light mechanism. I have a pack of 5 lights, or 5 light mechanisms, and what you get in each pack is, of course, the battery, and then the mechanism with 3 LED lights on each set. For my card today, I decided to use all 3 of the lights, but you certainly can choose less just by cutting off the extras. Okay, so here's where I realized that, boy, it sure would have been nice not to have the vellum on the back of my image, and I can just kind of trace the outline where the mouth and the eyes are, but that is not the case. So very carefully, I eyeballed it, and then I used my hole puncher and just punched out a couple of the spots for the eyes, and then there was a little surgery involved because I didn't actually get it right the first time. But here's what the back of it looks like now after it's been punched and cut and everything else. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with how the front of the card would look after I add the mechanism. And I'm just going to start by adding in my lights. I'm just using some Scotch tape, and I am kind of twisting those wires in place. It does not hurt the mechanism or does not inhibit any of the lights working. You just want to be careful not to get too many hard kinks in the lights, which could cause them to stop functioning. Once I have my lights in place where I want them, I'm adding foam tape to the back of the panel. I am doubling up on the foam tape, and I'm carefully going around the areas where I won't interfere with the mechanism. It's okay if you go over the wires. It's not going to cause any harm to them. But you just want to make sure you don't cover up that portion of the battery or the button, otherwise it could cause it to function improperly. So after I do all of that, and I do add my image, popping it up on foam tape to the front of the card panel, I thought, oh, how fun would it be to have some white splatters? So I just quickly kind of cut out a little mask from some paper to cover up my image, and I added some white splatters with diluted white acrylic paint. I also ink blended a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock with Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink, and I die cut it using the grass die from the Cloud and Grass Edger die set. While those panels are drying, I'm going to add just a little bit of interest to my black piece of cardstock. This one is cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm just going to stamp out that tiny little spider to create my own pattern paper of sorts. I have treated the panel with anti-static powder, and then I'm just using Versamark ink to stamp out that little image. I'm not going across the entire panel, I'm just kind of sticking to the sides, only because that's the only portion that's going to be visible. So once I have the panel covered, I'll use some white embossing powder, and then I can just melt all of that with my heat gun. At this point, all of my elements are ready, and I can start putting my card together. I stamped out the sentiment from the stamp set onto a black piece of cardstock, and then I white heat embossed it, and then I trimmed it using a banner die. Next, I can peel off the backing from the main panel and adhere it down to the black piece of cardstock, and just do my best to center it. And I already have my grassy little hill adhered down behind the pumpkin. or the jack-o'-lantern. So once I press that in place, I go ahead and adhere the entire thing to a side folding A2 size card base to finish off my card. I'll turn down the lights in my room so that you can see better how it looks when it's all lit up, and I think it's just adorable. So that will do it for my card. Please do hop along to the next participant in this collab. Don't forget to leave a comment on all of the videos to be entered into the drawing for the gift certificates from Whimsy Stamps and Pear Blossom Press. Thank you so much for hopping along today and watching, and I will see you another time.